Welcome to St John's. Last weekend was really quite unusual because we were locked down. The cathedral felt very lonely. I had to walk through here a few times on Sunday, and it really felt quite bizarre not to have the place enlivened with the body of Christ, offering worship and recognising the crucified and risen one amongst us. It does appear that the lockdown has been a great success. Of course, we need to adhere to the current set of restrictions. In terms of worship here at St John's, the only difference that the restrictions make is that we do need to wear our masks when we attend the cathedral. Those who are leading the cathedral, so the clergy when they're speaking, readers and intercessors and singers, don't need to wear a mask when they're actually leading worship, but the rest of us do need to wear a mask. So nothing much changes for us. We do need to reduce the maximum number of people who can come, but that still leaves us plenty of room for our regular Sunday worship. We're just grateful that this didn't happen over Christmas. So please do feel free to return to worship on Sunday. It'll be great to see you here. We still need to register, of course, because that does help with the contact tracing, and if you can pre-register, that certainly helps with the sign-in process. One of the things that the Chief Medical Officer has asked us to pay particular attention to is the taking of communion. The way we've been doing it has been pretty good, really. People have been fantastic in the way they have distanced themselves as they have been approaching the communion station. One of the extra precautions that we've been asked to add is that just before we take communion, we sanitise our hands. So that means that the stewards will be offering you hand sanitiser as you are a few people away from the communion station. One of the things that does assist us when we're distributing communion is if, as you do take communion, if you could just put your hands out flat, because one of the requirements placed upon us is that if we actually touch the hand of a communicant, then we need to re-sanitise our hands. So if your hand is out flat, that will minimise that risk. The other thing that I'm incredibly mindful of is that communion is a very poignant moment in the time of worship. We are at that moment trying to focus on being present to the crucified and risen one and to one another. In our normal state of affairs, that's really enabled by the fact that we are at the altar rail, we have time to pause and to reflect. So one of the things I'm mindful of is that joining a queue, taking the bread and moving on does tend to disrupt that moment. So I encourage you to, if you wish, once you've received the bread, to stand slightly to one side and at that point to consume the bread while taking the time to have that moment of being present, the statio that I've talked about in the past, where we actually pause to attend. So I think together we can sort of disrupt the tendency for communion to feel a bit like a production line. So please do feel free to, once you've received the bread, to find a space where you can consume the bread intentionally and quietly, and with that sense that we are in the presence of God and in the presence of the crucified and risen one, who makes himself known to us in the breaking of the bread and the breaking open of the word. This month's outreach through offerings is to support one of the projects of the Anglican Overseas Aid. This project is focused on the Solomon Islands. It's all about building safe communities and overcoming the gender imbalance that is often a characteristic of the societies in which we live. So I commend to you the work of Anglican Overseas Aid, and it's particularly the project that we as a cathedral community are supporting during this month of January. In terms of our life together, one offering that's being offered both here in the Diocese of Brisbane and in the Diocese of Melbourne is a series offered by Heartedge. Heartedge is based at St Martin's in the Field in the United Kingdom, but their program is actually intended to engage communities so that they learn from one another. And so when the fourth session comes in a few months' time, we will actually be offering some of what we do here in the cathedral in terms of podcasts and how that enables us to engage in theological conversation with one another and also to engage with the emerging future, of which we've made quite a lot over this time of COVID and which will be the focus for our Visioning Day in February. The Heartedge sessions will be offered on Zoom. One of the advantages of COVID, one of the silver linings if you like, is we've learnt a lot about how to use technology to connect people across the globe. So when the Heartedge sessions are on, we'll have people from various places in the Diocese of Brisbane, people from Melbourne, the UK and from other places throughout the world. On Sunday just gone, we had the first of the Journey sessions that was offered on Zoom because we were in lockdown. This week we will continue to use Zoom. The session worked really well on Zoom and people were gathering from quite a disparate set of spaces. So primarily on Sunday we'll offer the second session on Zoom as well. If people do turn up to the Darnell room, we'll have the capacity to incorporate them as well. But sometimes it's actually better just to stick to a Zoom session rather than trying to do something in mixed economy. The journey is intended to help us explore how our story connects to God's story, to the larger story, the story of the human family, including the stories that are particular to us in terms of our families and our cultures. It's a way of making sense and meaning out of our lives and finding how we're connected to something larger. It's particularly focused on people who wish to do some particular engagement in terms of their faith, but it actually is something that will enable each of us to get something out of it. And so whether you're seeking baptism, confirmation or reaffirmation at Easter, or really just interested in sort of how to connect your life and faith together in a better way, please do join us on Sunday, because we'll actually be looking at a couple of techniques that allow us to enhance that engagement. And so to our celebrations for this week we say happy birthday to Edward Kernke, to David Hughes and to Sherry Smith. I hope you all have a great day. So as this new year unfolds, we still have to deal with some of the complexities of COVID. I'm constantly thankful that we live where we do and that the leadership that's been offered for us and on our behalf has been so effective and clear and led by science. I think that's one of the hallmarks of the Australian response is, despite all the other sort of political pressures that are placed on our leaders, they've actually discerned that in this situation that the science needs to lead the way, and the other things that people worry about are actually better served when the science is heard first. So thanks for your ongoing support of the Cathedral. It'll be great to see many of you on Sunday as we put the lockdown behind us. Do remember to bring your mask, and thank you so much. Peace be with you.